Welcome back to Just Giants with Grump and the Cranky Fan, the best damn podcast for the best damn football team. I'm your host, the Football Grump, and with me as always is Mike the Cranky Fan.
Grump, I don't know what to say anymore about our football team, but I will say congratulations to me and to New York City Football Club for winning the Eastern Conference yesterday. I was down in Philly for a doubleheader, seeing soccer and then seeing the Lightning beat the hell out of the Flyers, actually. So, it kind of took my mind off the Giant game, and a theme of the show today is I didn't feel bad that I really didn't get to watch much of it because, quite honestly, right now, what is the point?
Part of the reason why this game was frustrating for me because even with Daniel Jones not playing, I felt like this was a game we could still win. And for what it's worth, this was a game that, as badly as they played, they were still in, score-wise, into the fourth quarter. I mean, they were pretty much a touchdown away in the fourth quarter. And they were driving in the third quarter, but there were problems all over the place. But the reason why I'm not super bothered by this is because, frankly, at this point, are we watching the 2021 Giants even? You know what I mean?
No.
This is pathetic, and guys need to step up, and they could have won this game, and they definitely should have played better. But also, this isn't even the Giants. This isn't the team that they assembled.
That's window dressing. And to make it worse, it's not even the 2021 Giants. It's very difficult to even evaluate the 2022 Giants with this. The way the roster currently is with all the injuries at key positions, and it's just a mash unit right now. And, like I said, I was at a tailgate in Philly outside the soccer stadium, and I was watching with my phone. And, maybe at some point, iTunes and iPhones will come up with a way you can actually watch a video and text people at the same time, because I was getting texts from people about different things. So I'd have to shut the game off for a minute to respond back to something that was important. And after a while, it's just like, what am I wasting my time for? I'll catch the highlights later. It's just, this is a team that's doing nothing on offense. I have an awful backup quarterback playing. There's no rhythm to this offense. There's nothing exciting about this. This is bad, boring football. And I just said, something, we'll just figure it out later. I'll watch it later. I can't be bothered. That's probably the worst thing you can be as a fan, is just apathetic and just whatever.
Yeah,
and that's sad.
I believe me, I hear you, but also it's like there's two variables there that if they're flipped, you'd be watching even despite the performance. And one is if the starting quarterback were playing, and the other is let's just say Daniel Jones isn't playing, but this team is closer to 500. You're probably still watching.
Oh, of course. I mean, this is kind of the collection of a perfect storm of a lot of bad things going on right now. You're right. If Daniel Jones is playing, sure. Because I'm looking to the future. I'm looking to see what can we build on, what can we salvage from the season that's a building block for going forward. And you're right, if we were, 5-5 or 6-6 or whatever we are about right now, and there's a realistic shot at a playoff shot, well, of course, that's different. But Daniel Jones isn't playing. The guys I want to see playing, like the Darius Tonys, they're not around. But playing a team that I could care less about. It's not like we're playing a rival. It's just, and I'm not saying I'm turning off the season for this, the game for the rest of the season. It's just, in that situation, it's very sad, but it's just click. And that's not who you want to be as a fan or an organization, is when some of your most loyal, diehard fans, people who spend a lot of time and effort creating content about that team, where I'm just like,
I guess, but again, we're attributing a lot of things that are happenstance to that apathy.
Of course.
Again, of course, yes, they've been in the dredges for the last couple of years, so that's super important. That's definitely the major contributor. But even as they try to work away from that, to me, I had this game checked off because I thought that this would be a really good barometer for where we were in our rebuild, because Miami is doing almost the same thing. They're pretty much on the same pace as us. And then it became a wash because you're watching, Jalen Waddle have a breakout, season because he's not hurt. You're watching Tua back there and play and, get his feet underneath him. And then on the flip side, Kadarius Toney's hurt. He's not able to play. And for the record, me saying that is not a knock on him. wide receivers just get hurt. I mean, there's not a whole lot of wide receivers who don't have some kind of injury history, so spare me that. But, Kadarius Toney's not playing. Daniel Jones isn't even playing. So we're looking at Mike Glennon throw to Pharaoh Cooper. This is not a barometer of anything. So it became just like, can we get the fuck out of this game? And what's frustrating is that, again, even despite the fact that they were playing really poorly on offense, they were in it up until the middle of the fourth quarter is when it really started to spiral out of control. But at the top of the fourth quarter, they were right there.
Right. And again, it's just kind of like, again, if this was week 3, it's a different story. But again, it's just like, they were in it, and yeah, there's a chance for a win in this game, but it's just like this is bad football.
Yeah, but when that's your roster trotting out there, and it's not your starting roster, but all you're trying to do is escape that game. I didn't expect a clean game.
I'm talking about me. I'm talking about me as a fan, my experience. Oh, okay. I'm not talking at all about, what does this mean for the program? What does this mean for this season? What does it mean for next year? I'm just talking for me personally, that I am at a low right now, that because of the situation we're in, because of all the injuries, because we're out of it, because of this, because Daniel Jones isn't playing, because the offensive line is this, because of all these things, it's like I've been beaten down so much this year that one of the very rare times in my life I was just interested in doing other things and watching a Giant game. And that's the state of where this 2021 Giants team is right now. That's nothing to say about the future going forward, expectations for quarterback, head coach, GM, the price of tea in China, any of that. I'm just saying, for right now, for December 5th, 2021, I've reached a rock bottom state for me where I just turned it off and didn't let it ruin the rest of my day. That's sad.
Yeah, it's sad, but again, I would expect that from a poorly played game with a backup. You know what I'm saying? Like, I totally get what you're saying. I totally get what you're saying, but at the end of the day, I expected this to be a close game that was going to look ugly and sloppy. And what's frustrating is that for me, I thought, and I still think, I'm happier with Glennon playing this game than Colt McCoy, for starters. But also, I wasn't totally... This wasn't the worst game for Glennon to have to play, but he certainly played way worse than I thought. I mean, he was missing guys even when he was completing passes.
He sucks. He's
especially bad navigating the pocket.
You're trying to find the best turd in the toilet bowl right now. We're going between the Glennons and the Colt McCoys and the Jake Fromms and, whoever the backup quarterback is who's not a backup with the potential to someday be a starter. You're talking about either journeyman guys who are at the end of their useful life, like a Glennon or Colt McCoy, or fringe guys that were barely drafted that are going to bounce from practice squad to third string to. I mean, a guy like Jake Fromm should never, ever see the light of day in an NFL game. He has to play because of circumstance, and that's kind of where we are. It's unfortunate, but I had no expectations for a guy like Mike Glennon. To me, it's like when you get to the Mike Glennon zone, it's just kind of like, all right, well, let's not make sure nobody gets really hurt that we need going forward, and let's just get through it. And let's, getting a win would be nice, but I just feel very beaten down now, and it's just very, I want us to win. Of course, next Sunday I'll be ready at 4:00. I got to be very, very honest. I'm going to be watching that game at Barclays Center while I'm watching Gator basketball, who, by the way, lost to a 0-7 team tonight. So that's in the shitter right now also. But again, I'm okay.
Okay, so I get it. But again, expectations isn't really it so much as it's just I knew the way Miami played defense, right? We'll just say this, because I don't want to dump all this on, if Daniel Jones played. Because if Daniel Jones played, their defense would have looked totally different. They would have had that cover zero constantly. And they do that to keep many guys down the line of scrimmage to prevent that RPO zone read kind of quarterback running kind of thing, because their defense isn't very good up front. So they overcompensate by doing a lot of those cover zero blitzes, and they just rely on Byron Jones and Xavier Howard on the outside to just hold their guys long enough for a pass rush to get there. So They don't do that with a Mike Glennon kind of guy, and you could see that. They didn't run a ton of the crowded line of scrimmage blitzes. I mean, they played a lot more traditional, four-man rushes. And they took advantage of the fact that Glennon has stone feet. I mean, he played badly. He does. So even Joe Flacco kind of ripped apart this secondary. It's just, they're not a good defense. They just sell out against a certain kind of quarterback, and that's why they played the Ravens so well.
Well, let's look at this. Let's look at this game in terms of what we can really glean for it going forward. Because that's really the only important thing. I don't care. Even at this point, I don't even care that we lost. Because now I'm starting to get into, maybe we just freaking tank mode. I'm very honestly, now all I'm thinking about now is the future. There is no present. I understand why we are where we are, but the fact is we are where we are. Now I start thinking about the future. Is Mike Glennon level acceptable for this team as a backup quarterback? Should be, is that one of the things on our long laundry list of things to do next year? Get a capable backup. Because I always say, to me, I always say in every offseason, if you have to go to your backup quarterback, your season is probably over anyway. But if you need someone to play a game or two, hopefully at some point in the future, we're not going to be a 4-9 team and the backup has to play, and you're in the position I'm in right now, who cares? At some point, we're going to be a 6-3 team, and we need a backup quarterback to play. And a Mike Glennon type of guy is not going to cut it. I
don't agree, but I will agree that he played very poorly in this game, and he played worse than I expected. But to me, there's three kinds of backup quarterbacks in the NFL. Okay, there are the backups in the NFL that they are going to be an embarrassment to the quarterback position. I mean, they are going to lose any game you put them in. There's a backup like that, and the Brian Lewerkes of the world, the Jake Fromms of the world, those are probably your guys.
But those guys are third string quarterbacks.
Okay, I'm just saying. Let's talk about I'm working my way up. Relax. Right. Cool your jets. So this is where we start. That's the third level. Those are your Jake Fromms right there. Your second level, to me, are your Mike Glennons of the world. And this is kind of encompassing, and this is the more broad category of backup quarterbacks. But these guys are backups for a reason. They're not starters because they couldn't cut it as a starter. And the league has understood that from the beginning. Now, they can do things. They can read defenses. They can usually throw the ball downfield. Or, they just don't have all the skills together. They have enough to get by in college and do really well and get drafted usually. But then they don't have enough to be a starter in the NFL. And to me, Glennon is that guy. To me, McCoy is also that guy, but they're different skills. So that's
the $1 million question right now, which the relevance to the Giants and going forward. Is Mike Glennon a level 2 or is he a level 3?
No,
I saw a level 3 quarterback.
Well, hold on, let me finish. The last level of backup quarterbacks are guys who were just recently starters, and when they come in, for whatever reason, they are going to push your starting quarterback for a job, which is actually something that we don't want. So we agree then, right? But in those three categories of backup quarterbacks, we agree that those are the three exist, right?
I guess I also put maybe a fourth level in there, and it's kind of rare. Someone like a Trey Lance, where
I agree with that.
They drafted him. He's eventually going to be the future, but he might not be ready to be your backup now. But he's on your roster. He's probably might even be considered your number 3 quarterback. But I think that's the fourth category as well.
Yeah, a drafted flyer.
An investment.
Yeah, but I mean, he also could flame out.
Of course.
Yeah,
but, I mean,
he's one.
But right now you have him because he's the heir apparent. He's just not ready at this moment, or there's a roadblock ahead of him for salary cap reasons or whatever. They can't just, If Garoppolo didn't have the number attached to his contract that he did,
he'd already
Lance
be gone.
Lance might be the starting quarterback right now, but it's not.
Garoppolo would be gone, whether it's Lance or somebody else. Garoppolo.
So that's category 4, which is not applicable to the Giants situation, but if we're going to play that out, yes.
So, to me, your second-tier backup quarterback will never, ever win a game with as many people injured that the Giants had. I mean, really, the only way they win that game is if they play a Dolphins team, where he's got the right skill set to actually beat that team, but, I mean, no quarterback 2 really has the skill set to improve losing your first-round draft pick on the outside, having the offensive line that they have. I mean, I don't know that there is a backup quarterback that is equipped to win a game like that. Really,
let's be blunt. I mean, there's not many starting quarterbacks that are going to win with as many.
That's my point. So I agree that maybe Glennon isn't great. He definitely had a bad game. But I mean, in what universe do we expect backup quarterbacks not only to win games, expect them to win games, but expect them to perform well with that scenario? I mean, I hate using an excuse, but I'm not ready to throw out Mike Glennon as we need to get a better backup. Like, I mean, that is so far the last thing from our problem. Yeah. I mean, what backup quarterbacks... Seriously, what backup quarterback in the NFL right now could have performed better than Glennon? There are some, but there's not a lot.
Well, I guess as you look at the tape, can you parse out Mike Glennon, victim of circumstance, versus Mike Glennon on his own performing poorly? Or is that too much?
On his own performing poorly, I would say was his ball placement. That was something that I thought that he was a little bit better at. But based on tape, not just me remembering. I checked him out when we signed him and whatever. I thought he was a little bit better than that. He definitely has the arm strength. What I knew he didn't have was a lot of pocket movement, and that is a victim of circumstance. He started, by the third quarter, he really started hearing footsteps, and they started showing up, to his credit. But I mean, the offensive line didn't play horrendously in this game. I mean, especially not to start in the passing game. But they also did a lot of stuff. They had a lot of max protects called and stuff like that, which means only 2 guys running down the field. But yeah, a lot of it were missed throws when he was freaking out.
So the bottom line, why didn't this team score a touchdown?
Well, I would say that...
You're saying if the offensive line didn't play that badly, and and Glennon, well, a lot of it wasn't his fault.
No, I'm not saying a lot of it wasn't his fault. I think it was 50-50. The ball placement issues were his. I thought he was better than that. The pocket is I knew he couldn't move well in the pocket, and if it started to fall apart, that's on him. I mean, there was one time where Andrew Thomas gave up a sack, but I mean, I counted it off. There was at least 6 seconds that he was in the pocket, and he didn't even move. And it was a clean... When was the last time we had a 6-second pocket?
I've had jeans that don't have pockets that last that long.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. There was a big play to be had to Evan Ingram down the field, who had a good game, by the way. That he just kind of threw, and you could see Ingram couldn't even get under it because it was just not on target at all. He didn't lead him. He just kind of lofted it above him. The interception to Darius Slayton was another one where I appreciate the deep shot. I don't even know if it was going to be an incompletion, out of bounds, broken up, whatever. But I appreciate the aggression. I appreciate pulling 2 guys there. He had Xavier Howard in a trail position. But you could see the moment the ball came out of his hand, Darius Slayton had to stop in his tracks to try and get under it. I mean, it was a bad throw. I don't think there was an issue with throwing that into double coverage. It's just if he led him and kept him running at full speed, it would have been single coverage with just that safety coming over, and you could just lead him out of bounds or whatever. I appreciate you throwing that deep ball there, but it just didn't work. I think that if this were a game where you had Tony and Shepard, I think that we probably win this game. I'm being serious because those are the 2 guys in against this secondary that would have had a big game, both of them.
And that's why I'm not getting bent about wins and losses anymore, really, because it's kind of like, well, it is what it is, and I've just kind of resigned myself to the is what it is. So, a lot of that kind of takes the impetus to me to get so must-see TV for it. It's just like, I know we're playing shorthanded. I know we don't have the key personnel we need to be successful to win games. So a lot of that's kind of like my, if I don't have my weapons, I don't have my line, I don't have my quarterback, I don't have an offensive coordinator, I don't have all of these things going on. I kind of, I'm not accepting it like, oh, I accept it, like it is what it is. Like, I'm happy accepting it. It's like, I resign myself to this is what it is. That's kind of where the malaise that yours truly, the Cranky fan, is feeling now.
You could see the way that they... Yeah, oh yeah. You could see also, though, the way they... I don't want to say that I like Freddie Kitchens because I'm not really rooting for him to take over the OC position, but you can see the difference in scheme, though, in the way that they're... getting the ball into Kenny Galladay's hands. And now they're forcing it a little bit, but they're also having him run routes that get him into a one-on-one position more often. We're definitely seeing with the way they're utilizing Evan Ingram, right? I mean, he is definitely running downfield more, period.
So I think what I'm seeing is that there is a little – we all know the offensive line sucks.
Yes.
But there's a little more faith in the offensive line to – it's not a sieve where they're just getting crushed in 1.5 seconds. He's trusting it to hold out a little longer, and you're seeing some results of that. You're seeing results of it. Like, you got to try. And I think that's what a lot of fans were, screaming from the hilltops for. It's like, you're not even trying to do this. And if you live in such fear. Now, again, we'll never know this, but are those independent acts or are they combined acts? Is it Garrett refused to take shots, or now they went to Freddie Kitchens, that Joe Judge said, your mandate is I want to see it a little more opened up too?
Well, if there's one thing I know about Joe Judge as a coach, it's that we'll never actually learn the answer to that, even through coded messaging. It's going to come down to the trends of history. And so, based on the game that Freddie Kitchens called last year and the 2 games he's called so far this year, I'll put that blame on Garrett, but it can flip. It can flip back because the fact is that Kitchens is still calling Garrett's playbook. He's just calling so it does currently on 3 games fit to Garrett because Judge is still, as far as we know, in charge. He hasn't even officially. Have we ever officially named Kitchens as OC? He's just calling the plays, right? Yeah. So
do we know 100% sure he is calling the plays too?
Yes.
Because before week 1, I don't think it was ever revealed until the very end of the week. But
that sounds familiar, actually.
Yeah. I thought it was kind of like, we are all assuming it, but has ever actually been said.
Yeah, I think by the end of the week it was fine. It was kind of the same thing with the Jones injury or whatever it is.
Right.
Where they were just playing coy about it, but we all kind of had already heard.
Right.
I saw that some, not guys on the Giants beat, but national guys, I think, were saying that it was going to be Kitchens, and nobody on the beat was confirming it.
Right.
So
can we? Go ahead.
I mean, again, this is the same thing as the Daniel Jones injury, where national media members seem to have the end result, while the ambiguity kind of sat around with the beat for a while because of, I guess they're just smoke signals. Right? I mean, I don't know. I mean, with the Jones injury, the fact that he was practicing but not cleared for contact, I really didn't know.
But quarterbacks normally don't have much contact in practice anyway.
Yes, but he wasn't cleared for it. So he could practice in a limited sense, even though he wasn't cleared for contact because he's auto red jersey.
Right. Most times you're not going to try to have contact with your quarterback anyway in practice.
Right, exactly. And the fact that injury happened on the second play of the game and he finished out that game, I was like, it's if he's practicing and he finished out that game, how bad could it be?
Yeah, he did say, the report came out that he started to feel it after the game. It really started bothering him later on that evening.
Yeah, but do you believe that? Seriously?
No, bullshit.
I don't believe it either.
Hey, speaking of bullshit, let's just put it out there for the record now so we can officially state our cases that a lot of people, a lot of fans, people on Twitter, friends of ours that we know, seem to be very affected by what Judge says in these post-game press conferences and get, very bent about coach speak. Can we just officially for the record tell everybody, don't listen to a word these guys say because it doesn't mean anything. And what are they supposed to say in a post-game press conference? Like,
well, this is going to open up to a whole Judge conversation, but let's start with just this.
Sure. I mean, people complaining about, he was pointing out all the positives that happened, and how can you say there's any positives when an offense that did absolutely nothing? What is the coach supposed to say? Do you want your coach throwing players under the bus when it's obvious that they're the ones making mistakes? They're the ones who are the weak links in an offensive line, or they're a backup or something? Of course not. So what is he supposed to say?
I 50% agree with you. I think when it comes to GM press conferences, 100% of that press conference means nothing. When it comes to coach press conferences after the game, I agree that there are... I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying in a general sense, without throwing any players under the bus, I think we still need to continue working on our pass blocking. Our run blocking wasn't where I wanted it today. Even if you're a broken record, there's nothing wrong with saying that. You don't have to call out Nate Solder. And if a beat writer asks you a player-specific question, then you can get vague and protect your player from, scrutiny or whatever, and let them just, deal with it in practice instead of having to deal with it with the national audience. So I 50% agree with you. There's also nothing wrong with pointing out the positive that you want to build on, because offense did move the ball. I mean, they had a lot. It's the run. I mean, the run game is hot trash. I mean, there were some moments in there where you had some 20-yard run, 13-yard run. They did get some stuff moving on the ground, but for the most part, a lot of 1, 2, -2. A lot of that, and it didn't matter which back it was either. So I want to hit Barkley for all of that, and I can't. I mean, Matt Skura was god awful in this game. I mean, really, he did get benched and whatever about that, but I mean, the fact of the matter is there was one play where the hole was off of right guard and tackle. It was there, but because Matt Skura got pushed all the way from the left guard spot into the hole, Barkley had to stop and got tackled 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Is horrendous blocking, especially since no one on this defensive line is that good.
You know what I think it is too is, everybody, they pick a narrative and they want to run with it. And they don't like to be either proven wrong or say something to the contrary. Because Judge, his comments about Matt Pert during the week were pretty honest. Like, he's not starting because, quite frankly, he's not good enough. I mean, he didn't say it in that harsher terms.
Well, but again, he said it. Nate Solder is playing well for us right now. He's playing better than Matt Pear, and that is kind of throwing Pear under. But that should be lighting a fire under Pear. I mean, this is a scenario where a guy should have won a spot and isn't. So hopefully
the problem is the fan base doesn't want to hear that statement. So a lot of times coaches are in no-win situations because they're either blowing smoke up your ass or they're telling you actually the truth, but you don't want to hear the truth. You want to hear, get Solder out of there. I want Pert to start. But, he just told you, in no uncertain terms, not good enough. He's not physical enough. He's not, he's not tough enough. And but you don't want Solder, so you get on the coach's case for that too. I mean, coaches, again, a lot of what they say is coach speak. A lot of it's spin. A lot of it is to tap dance around what they really want to say but can't say. I just implore this fan base, just take what they say with a grain of salt. I mean, be more upset about what you see on the field, not the way it's being described in a presser, because what they're saying is not what they really mean. That, the conversations that go on between him and Gettleman, him and Mara are different ones than what's being spewed out of their mouth in a presser. So just take it with a grain of salt, or just don't listen to the press conferences. That's my advice, because I don't care what they say in these things.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting is this week was the week where, and I think, I don't know how this corresponds, but it seems that once they fired Jason Garrett, it became much more transparent, right? A little bit. I mean, that's the first time they really opened up and answered the Nate Solder question. Now, I don't think many on the beat brought up the right tackle spot by name up until that week anyway. So, maybe it's that too. But we saw that from all coaches. I mean, they asked Rob Sale. He was very, very open about it. He specifically said that he was not tough enough. That he wasn't aggressive enough. He wasn't hitting, and that is his problem. He doesn't get his hands on guys fast enough, so he ends up getting beat because he's all out of position and shit. He lets the defender dictate the block. I don't know. The problem for Joe Judge is that these press conferences are very not informative after a loss. It's very much like looking on the positives after a loss, which people don't want to hear. But it also comes off the heels of a game that I don't think Judge coached very well. Now, I don't expect a game like this with the injuries that they have to be a clean coached game. And so to his credit, there were not a lot of penalties in this game on either team, and that's somewhat officials. But also, I mean, offsides and bullshit like that, there wasn't a ton of that.
what's the biggest things when we always talk about that was a poorly coached game, that was a well coached game, what are the things we're really concerned about? Let's forget about preparation and
it's time management and it's being conservative, and they were on full display in this game. Let's start with the first one was a combo of both. The wasted stupid timeout was at the end of the first quarter where they thought that the play, according to Judge in the press conference, he said that they thought that the play clock and the game clock were in sync. And it wasn't until there were 15 seconds left on the play clock that an official told him that the play clock was a tick ahead of the game clock. And rather than try and run to the... Now that you're in this scenario, the fact that you call the timeout is fine. I agree with the fact that you... Especially in this game where Glennon clearly had trouble communicating plays and getting everybody to the line of scrimmage and getting the snap off in 1 second. Now, my problem is... I know it's only the first quarter, but why are we so conservative that with 20 seconds, 25 seconds, 30... How many fucking seconds are on the play clock to start? Isn't it 26 or something like that?
35, I thought.
35? There's a huge amount of seconds. When that happens, for that scenario to happen, you have to be resigned to the fact that you're not running any play at all to the point at that point, at 30 seconds left. Why? Why? In the first quarter of the game, are you so conservative that you're not going to run a play? You have nothing called. You're not looking at whatever. And now that might be Judge. That might be Kitchens. I don't know. I mean, on the one hand, it could be Kitchens being like, let's just take this in. It could be Judge telling him, let's just take this in. I don't know. But I'm going to put it on Judge because it stays consistent with what I've seen from him.
Those are head coaching decisions, not coordinator decisions. So I'm putting that on Judge.
Well, it's the decision. But like I said, if Kitchens didn't have a play ready, then whatever. I'm not 110% confident. You
should always have something locked and loaded if you're a coordinator. It's your job.
I agree. That was on full display. How about punting from the 46-yard line on 4th and 2 in the third quarter with 5 minutes left, down by, what was it, 7? It was 10-3. That was bullshit, right? We agree?
Well, I did a whole rant several weeks ago about this, that that's not the NFL anymore. It isn't. And
they were also driving, though.
There is a fantastic Twitter account, and I don't have it handy, but what they do is they go through every game and they analyze every go for it situation. Let's say 4th and 8, opponent's 32, and they run a statistical analysis and they say the recommendation here is to go for it, and they say strong, medium, or weak, and they give you the result what actually happened. I'll find it for you guys. I'll tweet it after. I don't have it in front of me, but it's a really good Twitter account, and it does exactly. And you'd be amazed how many times it says to go for it, and coaches don't.
I feel like a jackass because I actually know the account. I follow it, and I don't remember it either.
Yeah. Let me look it up here while we're doing this.
Not to mention, by the way, that punt on 4th and 2 at the 46 went in the end zone. So from the 46-yard line, you punt into the end zone, comes out to the 20, so it was a 26 net punt.
What good is that giving you?
It gives you... Now, I understand wanting to pin them down, and to his credit, the defense is more loaded. I get that. But at a certain point, they have to do this. I mean, and not for nothing, but I think it was either the next drive or the drive after that. They had a 4th and 2 again at around the same spot on the field. They went for it with Barkley, just a simple handoff to Barkley off guard, and they got it. I mean, they just pushed the pile, and I think he gained 4 yards.
That Twitter account, by the way, is at Ben_bot_Baldwin, and it's called 4th Down Decision Bot. They'll go through every play, and they'll tell you it's Buffalo has 4th and 7 at the New England 17. The recommendation, go for it. Actual play tells you what it does. So it's really good. And next time you're watching a Giant game and you're kind of like, why didn't we go for it? Look that up and see what they say. Because odds are he probably went the conservative bent on a play when he should have. But that's who he is. And that's kind of one of the things that, the bigger question is going to be, and I don't want, again, I swear myself I'm not doing this every week, but I do it every week. It's, Joe Judge, is he a coach that should be able to withstand any new GM coming here. I mean, are we hitching our wagon so much to Joe Judge that everybody has to work around him, or does he go out with the bathwater also? Has he done enough to be untouchable? Is there enough potential shown that he's untouchable, or decisions are made around him? I agree.
Not at all. But at the same time, I still think he's coming back. Just a gut feeling that he's coming back.
That's two different things. I think the Mares are all in on him, and I think he is going to be the tail wagging the dog of this franchise going forward. I think they are going to be interviewing GMs with him being the litmus test. Like, how would you work with this coach? This coach likes to do that. How do you handle this? And I think he hasn't shown enough to me, X's and O's on the field. This is not saying I want to fire Joe Judge, but I'm saying I'm still very to be determined with him. That I think if you're bringing in a GM here, and I think if you want to get a really good one in here who wants complete control and autonomy, I don't think Joe Judge should be the factor in whether you're hiring your GM or not.
No, I agree. How do you think? Now, really, really dig back and try and remember, and be honest, because I think it's easy for us to have rose-colored glasses when viewing some sections of the Giants' past. But how do you think Judge and Tom Coughlin stack up philosophically? I mean, because Coughlin was never a big fourth down, go for it guy, even in the red zone. Coughlin also was very much into discipline, special teams guys. He seemed very conservative. He was he had the benefit of having one of my favorite Giants OCs with Kevin Gilbride, who was aggressive and fit Eli Manning very, very well. So it never really looked like total garbage, even when it was total garbage.
I'd say there's three main differences between Coughlin and Joe Judge.
I'm listening.
One, different game.
Mm-hmm.
The game itself is much more aggressive than it was. It relies on analytics a lot more now than it did 10, 15 years ago.
Not arguing that, but yeah.
Two, Coughlin had a track record.
Yes.
Coughlin went to an AFC Championship game in year 2 of an expansion team. He had success with Jacksonville. He gets the benefit of the doubt with decision-making, where a first-time coach who's learning the ropes may not get that benefit of the doubt. And 3, Tom Coughlin had Eli Manning.
Yep.
I mean, you have a guy that we're going to debate until the cows come home is a Hall of Fame quarterback. He has Daniel Jones, a guy we're going to debate till the cows come home, should he get another contract? So I think those are three main differences.
But those are three main differences, most of which are outside the realm of control. I mean, it's not really Joe Judge's fault that he doesn't have a track record in terms of, he's coming here doing what he wants to do. It's the exact same thing that Coughlin. I'm not actually saying this. I'm just, if we're arguing this, that it is the exact same philosophy. It's just that, so we gave Tom Coughlin and maybe ownership gave Coughlin more of a leash because he had a track record, but that doesn't change that he came in trying to do the exact same thing.
I think the big thing is the way the game has changed.
Sure, but again, I'm just simply taking the coaches at face value. Are they really similar or no? I don't really know. I'm thinking about this for really the first time. Because a lot of it too was like, oh, did I?
What? Yeah, you just cut out. Ask that again. That question.
Is it just, are they really similar or not? I mean, I'm only thinking about it for the first time.
I don't know. I think with the track record, I think makes the discipline thing for Coughlin more effective. I think being
but that's
older,
not really the point, though. I mean, it's just it's just where their points of emphasis are and what they're trying to do. They're pretty similar.
I guess so. I guess I would not consider Tom Coughlin. Well, I don't know. I mean, the play calling seemed to be a little more go for it than the conservative nature of him, like the discipline, the old school mentality of him. Bride and with Manning, I guess I don't know. I've never done really an analysis. He went for it on fourth down, but again, I think a lot of that is kind of the product of the times too.
A little bit, yeah. It's like, yeah, well, again, Tom Coughlin...
It's kind of like saying...
they forced Ben McAdoo kind of on Tom Coughlin. We knew that wasn't the kind of... that Coughlin didn't really buy into this new style. And when Ben McAdoo was the OC, there was... We can see now with hindsight that there was a definite Tom Coughlin stamp on that offense. That year where... Was it 2015 where McAdoo was the OC? There was a lot more emphasis on running the ball than there was in any of the years that followed, the 16 and 17 that followed.
Well, he also had Brandon Jacobs, Tiki Barber back then too, right? Or is Tiki Barber gone by then?
Tiki Barber was gone when Ben McAdoo got here. I don't even think we had Brandon Jacobs. I think we had you're going way far back. You're going back to Gilbride.
Okay, so let's start with Gilbride then.
But Gilbride, again, he was more of your calculated risk, where he was, again, they were going to lean very heavily on the run and play action. They read the defense, saw what they gave them, and they would do a lot of levels, route running, where you have guys taking the field and you take your shots.
I'm sorry, when you said, I was thinking Gilbride when you say McAdoo. That's why I was going back to the old days. I think a lot of it had to do with the talent that they had too.
Yeah, that's true.
On the offensive line and your running backs. I mean,
okay. When they started, but it's clear from like 2012 through 2015 when Coughlin got fired at the end of that year, it was pretty clear. I mean, he knew they didn't have talent on the offensive line, right? I mean, we agree. Coughlin knew because that's the big thing, is that Coughlin and Jerry Reese, their philosophies were not on the same page at all. They were polar opposites. Right. And that's really ultimately what doomed this team, was a disconnect there. I think they're kind of similar. I'm not going to... and that's not really an anointment, because I was very critical of Tom Coughlin never going for it on fourth down. His insistence on... I agree with the philosophy of how he wanted to run an offense, but it got down to the point where I can't help the fact that your GM isn't building your offensive line. You got to come up with something else. Right. I had my... And also... Tom Coughlin had to get over himself a little bit with the discipline thing at certain points. I understand that he fixed Tiki Barber, but that was like a Hall of Fame level guy. And he had guys like David Wilson wouldn't get any playing time because, he fumbled one of the... what are you going to do? Fumbles are going to happen at a certain point.
Yeah, he's a product of his time and maybe the product of a little previous time. Coaches are different. The way coaches handle players now is radically different than they were 10 years ago and radically different than they were 30 years ago. The stuff that like Tom Landry tried to do back in the 70s would never fly today. You watch these old films of, Vince Lombardi or Bear Bryant in college. Good luck. Guys like Bill Perkins, who was our coach back in the late 70s. Mm-hmm. 3-a-days during training camp.
No. 3 days, that's not going to happen.
You think any of that's going to happen? Ray Perkins, that's never going to happen today. Or even if they can't actually execute 3-a-days, the mentality of being tough. Mm-hmm. The whole purpose of 3 days was to be tough. That doesn't happen anymore. You have to coddle these guys. You have to be a psychologist more. There was no psychology back then.
Yeah, and that's true. But whatever. I don't know. So for me, with Joe Judge... I know at a certain point a coach is supposed to be getting the best out of his players, but I do want to see him coach games where this team looks okay. There is... I don't even think
outcoach
it's
your
above...
coverage. You know what I'm saying? Outcoach your coverage.
I get that, yeah. But at a certain point, I want to see how he performs. He also hasn't had a shot at getting an easy one. When has he had an easy game to coach? Never. They're never favorites in any game. They're never equipped to play a game. And frankly, they would have been this year had it not been for some injuries. I just want to at least see him coach those games.
But we do play some close games, though.
We play close games, but...
right.
Yeah.
So in those close games, I want to see, wow, Joe Judge helped us win this game. Not, I'm going to point to clock management, a bad timeout here, no more timeouts here, challenge, we knew he was going to get it, things like that don't help the call. flaws. I want to see smart decisions that little extra gave them the win, and we haven't seen that just yet.
Yeah, but again,
right? Because
I agree with you, but again, all these close games that he's coaching, and I'm not trying to make excuses for him, but all these close games he's coaching are in lieu of an offensive line that can block anything because guys are hurt. They're in lieu of a number one wide receiver. I see what you're saying, like, outcoach your coverage or whatever, but these are all games that should be winnable. I mean, he's trying.
Right.
He's too conservative for my taste, but he's also trying to coach around a significant problem that he shouldn't have to deal with, like varsity.
I understand that, but if we go back to every close game that we've lost, I think we can go back to the tape for our shows and say, I think Judge did a bad job here. He blew a timeout here. That was a dumb challenge here, and those might be tipping points in a close game. Get it. He's playing with 50 cards in his deck. He doesn't have a full offensive line. We've gone through that a billion times, but that's kind of what passes prologue. If there's 5 minutes left and it's a 2-point game, you're here. I get that. I haven't seen a game yet where it's like, whew, really smart moves, or he clearly outcoached Coach X.
I think he clearly outcoached Matt Rule.
Was that really close at the end?
I mean, they benched Sam Darnold, which was stupid. I mean, Darnold didn't play well, but benching him for PJ Walker handed us that game, right?
Yeah, I could say that. Yeah, that's almost like waving a white flag.
Yeah, I mean, that's more an indictment on Rule than anything.
Yeah, is that him out coaching Rule, or is that Rule just,
Well, okay. Here's a really good segue. The Panthers just fired Joe Brady. So we had a brief 1-2 text about this. I mean, I don't think that he's joining the staff, right? I mean, I don't think that they even want him on the staff.
I'm going to go out on a limb right now. I'm going to say it in public. There are 2 teams I would love Joe Brady to be the offensive coordinator. My first pick is the Florida Gators. My second pick is the New York Giants.
I agree with you.
Let me tell you something. I don't know how much you guys watch college football, and I don't know how much SEC football you watch. I've been watching the SEC for 30 years. I have seen amazing offenses from Florida. I've seen amazing offenses from Alabama. I've never seen an offense like LSU's. And I know there's a bunch of first-round picks all over the place, but Joe
Brady.
Quarterback.
Burrow.
Quarterback, help me out.
Burrow.
Joe Burrow can't miss 5-star quarterback recruit. He was a transfer from Ohio State. He was an accurate guy coming out of high school, but was not, the end-all, be-all of recruits. The year before, in 2018, I saw him in person in Gainesville play Florida. He was accurate, but...
I was there. Mm-hmm.
You're at that game.
Mm-hmm.
Trask outplayed him.
He threw a game-ending pick, essentially.
Right. But something happened. The switch got turned, and he became one of the greatest quarterbacks, single-season quarterbacks I've ever seen. Pro-ready type. I mean, guys like Cam Newton had their own single years. But still, the point is, Joe Brady was the mastermind of that offense. And I had my short list of who I wanted to be the Gator head coach. He was on that short list. He never had coached before. Now there's got to be a reason why he was scapegoated out of Carolina. They don't have a quarterback. I don't know if he got along with Rule or not. I don't know if around that he was, not so quietly looking at other jobs, college and pro. And they might have just launched him. It seemed very strange on an off week to do it. If he's available and he's out there, he is my number one target for offensive coordinator. You can keep Freddie Kitchens, get rid of him. If Joe Brady is available and he's interested, you get him here. You overpay him to get him here. That's how good he is.
Yeah, I think my only concern with him is, I would want to interview him and just understand his perspective of what happened in Carolina, because I would want to know why he was run out. But also, my only concern is that he's super young and he hasn't really had an OC job for a very long time. But, we've already shown that we don't give a shit. We'll hire 1,000 assistants to help you out. I mean, so hire some assistants, help him out.
This is the NFL, and this is 2021. You get a support staff around him for what he needs. You ask him, right, of course, you do your due diligence for any hire. You don't just, because the Cranky fan watches a TV and says, hire this guy, that's not why you hire him.
Or because he's a name.
Right. You find out what the backstory is. Why'd you leave LSU? Why didn't you stay there? Because their other co-coordinator retired that year. Why did he stay at LSU and get a huge contract and stay there? Why did you leave? What happened behind the scenes? You tell us. What do you feel you need to be successful at this job going forward? Do you think Daniel Jones is a quarterback you can work with in your system? Or do you think that we need to move on? All these different things. But I'm just telling you what I saw. And I saw an offense that was playing against SEC-level defenses, shredding them. Took Georgia. We've all been running a batch all year about Georgia, how great their defense is, until the Bama game, obviously, but shredded them the year before.
Yeah. I mean, Coach O isn't at LSU anymore, so he won a national championship.
Right.
So,
and then 17 months later, it's gone.
Yeah. So is Joe Brady, but
that's what I'm saying. You don't have the players, you don't have the support staff around you that made you successful, and you become exposed as just, some Louisiana redneck. But
so
yeah, I would definitely. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I would definitely. He gets an interview from me. Period. I mean, that's the only thing I can guarantee, and I'm guaranteeing him an interview.
Yes.
4 guys I thought had a good game and are playing well. Xavier Mckinney, I think, continues to man that single high without any issues, and he continues to be aggressive flying downhill at plays as well. He nearly had a pick in the first quarter off of the Waddle deflection, which we kind of got away with a hold on Waddle anyway. And then, someone was guilty on the Isaiah Ford touchdown. I just don't know if it was him or Bradbury. Based on the replay, I mean, I just don't know who had the responsibility to stay and which one had the responsibility to stay on the outside. It kind of looks like it was Bradbury's fault for running inside. I don't really know why he did that, but I don't want to just say that like I know what I'm talking about. But again, it's important, as we evaluate Tua finishing his rookie season essentially just last week. Xavier McKinney is not far off. I mean, he's also just kind of getting his feet wet, and he's getting better and better and better. So, good thing to have back there. Definitely continuing to develop and fits well into Patrick Graham's system. So that's a good thing.
I don't want to tangent this too much, but Patrick Graham, are you feeling like the first couple of weeks, or are you feeling like what we've seen in the defense the last couple of weeks, and also what last year is kind of, to me, Patrick Graham is the rock on this coaching staff right now more than anything else.
100%. I mean, that's clear as day. I'm going to be afraid that he's getting a head coaching job that isn't ours every single offseason, and frankly, in between weeks, I'm gonna get afraid of that news being leaked until it happens, because he is that good.
I'm worried.
What he's done. I mean, even in this game. I mean, they had Aaron Robinson, who also played really well, by the way, playing on the outside full time in Adoree Jackson's absence. I wouldn't, when I said that I was excited about Aaron Robinson coming to this team, I'd said that he was, one of my favorite corners coming out in this draft, but he's not strictly an inside guy, but he's going to be primarily an inside guy. He played full-time on the outside. He even had a really good tackle on Jalen Waddle in the open field to prevent the first down. He had an excellent pass breakup on Gesicki, and then a legitimate one, and then another one in the end zone where he didn't actually break it up, but he got his hand right up there in the face that caused, in my opinion, caused Gesicki to... Because it's not like Gesicki dropped it. It hit him in the face, which tells me he couldn't see where it was.
Right.
I thought he played outstanding on the outside. That is he should not be getting full-time snaps out there. And he didn't really allow a whole lot. I think the only thing I saw was a back shoulder pass to Devontae Parker, which is like, back shoulder is the hardest thing to defend in the NFL.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought Ingram had a really good game. A lot of third down conversions on 3rd and long, which means that he was running 10 yards down the field. So
he's quietly had a halfway decent season.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is just one of those things where it's like I've always felt he was misused. Every coordinator he's had up until now, so far, 2 games with Kitchens here, he's been running inside of 5 yards and crossing and trying to use his quickness against. Like, I don't care about his quickness against linebackers. That's useful from time to time, not every single play. Let him stretch the field. Let him get linebackers with their backs turned to the line of scrimmage running after him. That's what I want. I don't want them with facing the line of scrimmage and just kind of strafing alongside or in a chase position. So
you're not using his strengths.
Yeah, and we saw it. I mean, how many I think he had like 4 third down conversions in this game. One of them was an excellent catch, diving to the ground. And I think Tay Crowder is slowly getting better.
Go back to Ingram for a second. Has he done enough improvement this year that's going to save his career with the Giants, or do you think he's gone?
Not with the Giants. I mean, A, they have no money to re-sign a single soul, and B, some team with cap space is going to know that they can unlock, and they'll spend more than we were willing to spend even if we had it. So
gotcha.
he's gone.
I agree.
But his career here, I wasn't happy with him as a draft pick. I didn't want him. It seemed like just another Jerry Reese pick where I thought there were better things, and who I thought was better at the time, I can't tell you off the top of my head. But I was at my friend's house, so I remember being pissed. I remember it very vividly. So don't think that this is conjecture. But I've always felt like we never even got to see it because he just never got used the way I thought he would be used or the way he was used in college. I mean, whenever they did have him running down the field, he was almost strictly a decoy. So it just, I don't know. I mean, but he hasn't done anything to help himself dropping passes like crazy. So it's not like... I just think that if he were utilized the way I anticipated, we'd be having a much more heated discussion about whether or not he should return.
I think he also would, if he's utilized properly, he's more successful, he has more confidence. He doesn't become a head case with dropping balls.
Sure, I agree with that.
No, I think it kind of snowballed, not being used, maybe some frustration, pressing, drop pass, gets in your head, that snowballs, you're done. Mm-hmm. So... That's, wishful thinking, Cranky fan talking, but I think that's pretty true.
Tay Crowder for me, remember, this is Mr. Irrelevant. This is a guy who's only played linebacker for a couple of years, converted running back at Georgia. Still getting used to that inside linebacker position, and he's specifically learning his coverage and his coverage techniques. But he's not, I wouldn't say he's bad in coverage. He just has mental lapses, which, I would think comes with learning the position for the first time, in the last couple of years. So, but I think he already plays really well in the run game and jumping into gaps and blitzes. He had a huge hit on Tua in the third quarter. I mean, he lit him up, and I know he went unblocked, but some of that was also his disguise and his pass. I mean, he really didn't look like he was rushing for a good 2 seconds. He was just kind of trotting, and then he turned on the jets, and by then it was too late to pick him up, and he just leveled Tua and caused an incompletion. He also had a giant tackle for loss in the second quarter.
Do you think Gettleman, Judge, Graham will look to upgrade that position, or do you think they're happy with what he's been producing and his upside?
So for me, this game really highlighted that this game to me was still winnable with a backup quarterback. And what it showed me was we need to get either healthy at wide receiver or get strong on the offensive line. But defensively, I was actually disappointed with the pass rush for this game. Now, I know the pass rush has been a thing all year, but all year, in my opinion, has been pass rush would be great, but I'd almost rather get 3 offensive linemen before then. We can live with the defense the way it is now. We cannot survive with an offense with this offensive line. So this to me was a glaring... I mean, I said that in the preview podcast, I said that they need to be able to get to Tua. And I said Tua's not a big turnover guy. He's really good at throwing away the ball, protecting the football, avoiding sacks. But so that when they get to him, they don't have to hit him, I guess they have to hit him, but they don't have to get sacks. I'm not looking for sacks and sack fumbles. I'm looking for pressure. And there just really wasn't pressure. They got, I think, 2 sacks in this game and maybe 2 other quarterback hits. Mm-hmm. This offensive line that Miami has is almost on par with ours as it is injured. which should really be saying something to you guys. I mean, ask Dolphin fans that run their own podcasts, look at their beat writers. They'll tell you that the offensive line has been terrible for them all year. We couldn't do jack up there. Really, we had, I think, just 2 sacks in this game, one for Ojulari, which was kind of a halfie with Carter, and one for Quincy Roche. To me, the pass rush is a bigger problem than I actually thought it was. I think that they need a pass rusher very, very badly. Now, again, Adoree Jackson wasn't playing the other corner, so these quick throws, they're coming out. Blake Martinez isn't playing inside linebacker, so those middle of the field ones, they're coming out a little bit faster. But still, you're going to have games where you're not going to have your full thing. A pass rush, they have to get better there. An inside linebacker, I just mentioned Blake Martinez. Tay Crowder, to me, the fact that he's playing up to a depth level position player as a Mr. Irrelevant is already a win. He's continuing to get better, but I'm worried, with Blake Martinez if he's even coming back. So, I think they are going to upgrade that position in the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, to me, we'll do this from now until the draft and free agency. But biggest needs, offensive line and pass rusher, and everything else behind it will be better with you have those 2 foundations at the line of scrimmage.
So, I guess that's going to kind of wrap this up. I'll just leave with some negative news here. Mike Glennon has a concussion. He's currently in the concussion protocol, so nothing is set in stone yet. We already saw Daniel Jones clear the concussion protocol in a week. It happens all the time. It's not that rare. I don't know any other details about the concussion, its severity, or even when it happened. I don't know if you do. But right now it looks like Jake Fromm, who was just signed off the practice squad from the Bills, is going to start on Sunday. And our quarterback's coach, Jerry Shaplinski, has COVID, so he will not be able to coach him.
I'm glad we didn't take the trip out to LA this weekend, Grump, as we discussed in the offseason.
We would have at least gotten good weather.
We would have had a nice tan maybe, but no. It's the hits just keep on coming. And please don't at me about what Fromm did against Florida 4 years ago. If Kirby Smart wasn't such a jackass and stubborn in the quarterback room, he would have Justin Fields instead of Jake Fromm, and he probably wins a national title with the amount of talent around him too. So Jake Fromm was a decent college quarterback, kind of a what do you call it? A game manager for the college level, if that makes any sense. But there's a reason why he was drafted low and has never sniffed an NFL field in a real game. He's not an NFL playing a quarterback. And he has to come in with about a week's knowledge of the playbook without his quarterback coach, who has COVID, and he can't have the normal communication with him. With this offensive line, with all the injuries, you're almost better off just doing the wildcat every play. And maybe you break one run for a long yards or something.
I'm not even gonna. I don't even want to think about it. I don't have to think about it yet because we're not doing the preview podcast, so I'm not going to. I'm going to hope that the concussion was not severe at all for Glennon and that he can play.
Absolutely.
Since it looks like Jones may be out for the year, but the initial reports are he's definitely out this Sunday. So
yeah, this could be really bad.
Yeah, but that preview episode will be on Friday morning for you guys. As always, you can follow me on Twitter in the interim at @football_grump and him as well at the Cranky Fan. The show is available on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, you name it. It's also available on YouTube. I'm hoping. I've had some tech issues. Give me a little bit of a break. I'm trying. I spent an entire Saturday trying to resolve it, and hopefully you are watching me say this to you right now on YouTube on Monday morning. That's my hope.
If you want to send us some financial contributions to help our cause, we'd really appreciate it. Since
I
Jameson has yet sent us that check for that sponsorship. But yeah,
I keep ending up sending them money somehow.
Yeah, exactly. So if you want to see our ugly mugs again, send us cash because we need it.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I think this one's gonna go up. I think I resolved my issue, but we'll get that figured out. In the meantime, we will see you on Friday morning. Go Giants.
Go Giants.